And now, the last of our perspectives. Please welcome Kulvir Singh Gill to speak to us about the Sikh perspective. Kulvir.
Thank you very much. I'll start with, first of all, some acknowledgements and some thank yous. Respecting, first of all, the First Nations on whose land we now call home. Thank you for having us here. Thank you to the City of Waterloo, the University of Waterloo, for having provided the venue for today's event. Thank you to the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama for their foresight in trying to facilitate a discussion and a dialogue of this type, which we all know is far too rare in today's world. And thank you to the audience. I think the openings this morning were almost like commercials, I guess, to get you to stick around. And I think we sold our wares because I think most of you are still here and most of you are still awake. So I'll try to keep you awake. Interfaith discussions always have a bit of self-selection with them because to even come to one of these type of events, you have to believe in dialogue. You have to be willing to entertain into dialogue. And you have to have a perspective that we are one of many. And the fact that you're all here today and the theme that we have, the fact that a major world religions conference has come together and is pondering how to keep faith alive in contemporary society really reflects the crisis, I think, that has struck the world's major religions. Across all traditions, the critics of organized religion have become increasingly vocal in their pointed commentary about what they see as wrong with our gurdwaras, our temples, our mandirs, our churches, our mosques, our synagogues. Religious orders are seen as hopelessly out of touch with the current reality in society. They're increasingly treated as a quaint legacy of our grandparents' beliefs and considered largely irrelevant for our grandchildren's future. Scandals around the world have eroded the moral authority of religious figures to lead their masses through traditions that are largely seen as dogmatic and hollow by many. Spirituality is said to have been divorced from religion. More and more Canadians, and many of our friends and our family members, claim to be unaffiliated with any religious tradition, but they still believe in a higher power and its unseen hand. Religion is actually, if you think about it, amongst our oldest human traditions, older than any country, corporation, or any organization. But it's largely seen to have failed in responding to what we see all around us as the most accelerated and profound changes in the history of humanity. So when you take a look at society all around us and the world, it looks like the world has changed at almost every level. Our families are getting smaller. Our family ties are diminishing. We're having fewer kids than our parents and our grandparents did. Most people in Canada and around the world now speak English as their first language. And even if it's not their first language, it's become the de facto global language. Unfortunately, 80% of the world's languages are on the verge of extinction within the next generation. Our dress codes and greetings are becoming increasingly informal. I hate wearing a tie. I say, hey, how's it going, rather than pleasure to meet you, sir, right? Look at the emails. Yo, what up? The formality is diminishing. My grandparents will probably be the last people in my family who will never wear Western clothes. We use technologies that only 50 years ago would have been considered witchcraft and magic. I consider those of you that have an iPod. If I had an iPod with Google Earth 500 years ago, I could probably run the world. Just think of what we have and what is at our fingertips now. What 3-year-old kids play with was unfathomable a generation ago. You know, I can watch TV on my cell phone. I can watch world events unfold live in 120 character tweets. Who would have thought that was possible? My cousins in India are all on Facebook. And they know as much about my life here in Canada as my friends who live down the street from me. We as society, we've moved from farms to cities, from the developing world to the Western world. We increasingly use our brains and our computers to earn a living instead of our hands and tools. Try explaining to my grandparents what a management consultant is. They don't get it because it wasn't an occupation that even existed 50 years ago. My father will be the last person in my family to ever work on a farm, probably, or be forced to work on a farm. And as these tsunamis of change wash over us, every year it seems like there's more change coming. Every year the change looks like it's coming faster and more ominous. It seems like there's nothing constant in life. But when you step back and you think and you ponder and you reflect, like all of the speakers today have encouraged us to do, and we start really looking at what's going on in the world, in many ways the world is actually the same. In many ways, nothing has really changed. The world is still at war. Government oppression and tyranny is still widespread. Materiality still drives most of human behavior. Most of us are still addicted to power, glory, a comfortable life. We still want the biggest house, the finest clothes, and the best-looking mate. Actually, I'm doing pretty good on all three of those. We're still green with envy at our neighbor's possessions. So hundreds of years have gone by. Humanity has been around for millennium, and we're still, as the fifth Sikh guru, the Sikh prophet, Guru Arjan, remarked 4 centuries ago, tastes and pleasures, conflicts and jealousy, the intoxication of materiality. We're still attached to these, and the jewel of human life is wasted. So every faith believes in the sanctity of human life. Every faith believes we're here for a purpose, that there's something bigger to life than the acquisition of all of these material things. So time has come, centuries have changed, but all those human forces are still the same. We're still primal beings, we're still animals, we're still dog eat dog. A good definition I heard of what does it mean to be rich? What's the definition of being rich? Well, it's making 10% more than your brother-in-law, right? We all want to be a little bit big more than anybody else. Doesn't matter if I'm living in the nicest house in town. If my neighbor has he has a 5 Series BMW, I have to have a 7 Series. That race, that perpetual staircase, we're always climbing up. That was there 500 years ago, that was there 1,000 years ago, and is still there today. But more optimistically, we also retain a deep desire for real peace and happiness in our lives. We continue to drive towards improving ourselves and our lot in life. There's a whole study in business called continuous improvement. As humans, we're always trying to move forward and trying to, how can I get better? In whatever aspect of my life I choose to focus on. We still ponder the big questions in life. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I trying to do with my life? We humans, simply put, still long to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And all the scientific and technological progress in the world still can't help us answer these questions. In fact, in most instances, it's all of this progress that's that's distracted us from even asking these questions. Most of the time, we're so busy in our day-to-day lives, and modern life has gone so busy. How often do we actually have the time to ponder, to reflect, to ask those big questions of ourselves? And even more importantly, how often do we actually sit down and say, well, how am I doing? Dr. Phil's like saying that. How's that working out for you? So I believe the role of faith in today's world is to help fill this gap between where we are now and what we aspire to be. It can give us a sense of meaning in a meaningless world. It can help us to understand, or at least accept, a world that seems beyond comprehension. Our faith reminds us about the sanctity and the spirituality of every life form. Our faith provides us with a shoulder to lean and to cry on in times of need. From our religious traditions, all of them, we gain a collective sense of belonging, a sense of inclusion, and a sense of positive reinforcement. The teachings of our collective prophets give us a sense of purpose in our life, and they inspire us to realize that the presence of the Creator is within each one of us. In a world where ethics and morality seem to be sliding down a slippery slope of relativity, well, at least I'm better than that guy. Well, at least I didn't steal as much as that person did. We're down that slippery slope where as long as we're better than the other person, we're doing okay. Our faiths instill us with an absolute moral and values-based framework that can guide us through life's big decisions and the small decisions. Our faith provides us with a sense of harmony, a sense of peace, and a sense of balance. However, even with this great need for spiritual direction, even when all of us are watching Oprah and reading Eckhart Tolle and going to self-help gurus and buying their tapes and self-help books, even with all of that need and that genuine deep down desire to be part of something bigger, our religious groups have not generally risen to the task. I look at my own community and I look at all I have to do is go to a prayer service at a gurdwara, and I look at the age of the people there, and I look at the number of people there, and it's dwindling. And most of them there's very few young people attracted to faith. They're too busy. It's not a part of their life. The fancy word of mind space. Faith really isn't taking up much of their mind space. They're too busy doing everything else in life. Faith hasn't been contemplated at that level, and in many ways, they've been turned off from the faith that they've seen. But even so, I humbly propose 2 suggestions that we can try to implement to keep faith alive in our contemporary society, which is the theme of today. Firstly, I say with all due respect, our faith groups need to confront reality and adapt accordingly. We must come to terms with the plurality of religious practices within an increasingly secular world. My religion is not the only way forward, and neither is yours. Mother Teresa was once asked, "Do you convert?" And she replied, "Of course I convert. I convert you to be a better Hindu, or a better Muslim, or a better Protestant. Once you've found God, it's up to you to decide how to worship." And that's what I think we need to focus on. So many faiths, and my own faith included, seems to be fixated on numbers, quantity. How many do we have in the world? Are numbers going up and numbers going down? It's as though it's a business. In many ways, faith has been reduced to a business. We're fixated on quantity and productivity. How many institutions have we opened up? How many houses of worship have we opened? What is the attendance at these things? So somewhere in the mix, in the fascination on quantity, we've forgotten about quality. I saw a great video that on YouTube a few weeks ago where a fellow in India, a Sikh fellow in India, grabbed a camera and went to one of the big gurdwaras in I think it was Delhi, and found the most religiously looking people. People that, for Sikhs, were very visible, and you can see the turban, the beard. It looks, oh, that person looks religious. Went up to him and started asking him basic tenets of their faith, basic questions. What are the pillars of the faith? Name some key personalities in the faith and stuff. And these individuals that had the look didn't have any of the knowledge. And I'll confess one of the worst hypocrisies I've seen is that one of our religious leaders was late for a political function. This is one of the people that we look to for guidance, was late for a political function. He was in the backseat. He had his driver taking him. This was in Punjab. And the driver was speeding along, and he hit somebody. And they didn't stop because they were late for a political function. And the driver was found, arrested with hit and run, and the case will go through the courts and stuff. But it just illustrated to me the type of moral hypocrisy in our community and in faith in general that is driving people away. There's 2 Punjabi words, Gani and Karni. Gani is what you say, and Karni is what you do. When there's a difference between those 2 things, people are going to see through that hypocrisy, and people are going to choose to check out. Maybe 50 years ago, you didn't have an option. You had to go. Your parents would beat you if you didn't go to church or synagogue or gurdwara, what it was. You had to go. So you went. But now, increasingly secular world where there's more rights and freedoms and youth have more say over their lives, people are calling out that hypocrisy. And the critics are the ones that you should actually be thankful for because they're saying something, they're doing something, they're active. It's the people that are just passively checking out are the ones we need to worry about. And so while our numbers are going up in most religious faiths, I really wonder about the quality of the people that we're having, and we're bringing them, how we're bringing them into the faith. So in every one of our traditions, there are a few elements that are universal, timeless, and central to our faith. These foundations must be constantly reinforced and strengthened. Every one of our faiths has the pillars on which the faith rests. However, there is a lot of greater area of practice and belief that must be malleable to the forces of our current age. There are many things in each of our faiths that centuries ago, millennium ago, served a functional purpose, but over time, that has taken on a spiritual significance. You know, I'll tell a quick story of a black cat. It's probably not true, but there was a monastery where a bunch of young monks were being taught, and they were little kids, and they were playing around, and they would go through their daily meditations. And they were up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, and one of the kids, one of the young monks, got a black cat. And he got this cat, and he kept it as a pet, and the older monks didn't mind because they, give the kids a chance to play. But when they would sit down to do their meditations, and the children would sit down, this cat would come and start jumping on their laps, jumping around, putting their tail behind kids' ears, and just generally causing a distraction. So the older monk says, do something about that cat. So what the boy does is he takes a nail, digs it into the ground, and ties the cat up to that nail. And that was fine. They would continue with their meditations, and the cat would be there during the meditations. And that boy kind of grew up, and when he moved on, he gave the cat to someone else, to one of the other boys to look at. So the other boys, the instructions to the boy was, take care of the cat, but when it's time for the meditations, just tie him to the ground. And the boy would do that. And this cat, had 9 lives, so he kept going through a few monks, and the boys would grow on and pass the cat on to successive monks. Well, one day, the cat eventually died. So what did the monks go and do? They went and got another black cat. Because what had become something that was functional at that time took on spiritual significance. And so they thought that you cannot meditate without a black cat in your presence. And so we need to think about, what are the black cats in our faith? What are those things that were, at one point, had some very specific, significant, functional significance, but now we've treated them as if you try talking about those things, it becomes sacrilege. So we must deal head-on with the inequalities in our faiths based on gender, race, sexual orientation at all levels within our communities, no matter how inextricably linked these prejudices appear to be with our doctrines. I fundamentally believe that these inequalities were not what our prophets had in mind. But somehow along the way, call it culture, call it politics, whatever it is, these inequalities have crept into our doctrine. And as leaders of the faith groups, we need to get with the times. If our society is becoming equality-based, is becoming a meritocracy, where your lot in life is determined by what you do, not by who you are, our faiths need to mirror that. It is these types of biases that make religion seem hopelessly out of touch with the rest of the world. As sung by Guru Ram Das, our 4th Sikh Guru, he says, all are made of the same clay, the light within all is the same, the one light pervades all the many and various beings. We're all one. Secondly, the practice of faith and its transmission to the next generation must move away from the all too convenient tools of guilt and fear. If I'm a Sikh boy, and many Sikh boys have this problem, a young Sikh's religious practice should not be guided out of fear of his father's wrath, nor the guilt of a disappointing mother. And if I ask many and I'm speaking on behalf of my community and lifting the curtains back, if you ask many young Sikh boys, pick on the boys who are teenagers, and they're keeping their hair and their turban, and they ask them, well, why are you keeping your hair? And they'll say, well, you know what? If I cut my hair, my dad will kick me out of the house, and my mom will cry herself to death. So what's keeping my religious observation? Fear and guilt. And as we've heard today, what is the essence of all of our faiths? What is the essence of humanity? It's not fear or guilt. It's love. So rather than fear or guilt, our faith should grow out of our love. For a young Sikh, that love should be for his Guru, a love for his Sikh identity, a love for his fellow Sikhs, and a love for all of humanity and God's creation. So I believe that collectively we're falling out of love with our faith, despite love being the foundation of every one of them. So as a Sikh, I wear the 5 Ks of our faith, right? And many of you have heard about the most contentious of the kirpan, the hair, the bangle, all of these things. And Sikhs have invented some very complicated reasonings and rationale for why we keep each of these symbols or articles of our faith. But the one I propose to you is the same that I have for this little ring I wear on my 4th finger. This ring has no function. I can't do anything with it. I can't open it. I can't break anything with it. It has some physical value. But why do I wear it? I don't wear it because of that. I wear it for simply one thing: love. Love for my partner in this lifetime. Love for someone who I've chosen to spend my entire life with. Spend this life with. Well, why do I wear my kakars? Why do I wear my 5 Ks? Not out of any logic. I wear them out of love for my coach, my guru, who's going to be with me in this lifetime and is going to be there, and who knows what's going to take place afterwards. But someone who's guiding me across. So I can give you all the rationale for logic, all the logic for faith. But Shakespeare says, where there's love, there's no need for logic, right? So how do we start loving again and making faith relevant to our lives? I propose that religion is less a matter for the head than it is of the heart. And so we must start helping individuals reconnect with this essence of their respective faith, which is that love. Our 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, stated very clearly in his poetry, "Let this eternal truth be known to all, that only those who have love for divinity, love for the Creator, and love for the creation can ever attain infinity." So, in closing, I hope today that as we come together to learn, to listen, to understand, to be understood. We come together to overcome the knee-jerk reactions of using fear, guilt, and force to try to bring people to faith, try to bring people to our way of the world. And we rely more on love, which is harder, more difficult, but more sustainable. And I think if we do that and we connect, we connect that disconnect between Gani and Karni, between saying and doing, as members of faith, I think we can certainly make faith relevant in today's society. Thank you very much.